Hi, I'm Greg Watson. Did you know that if you travel overseas for longer than 3 weeks and you're a landlord, if you don't appoint an agent, you could be up for a $1,000 fine? Tenancy law says that it's really important the tenant has somebody that they can contact while you're away. So appoint an agent if you're going away for longer than 3 weeks. I spoke to someone this morning. They're appointing us to look after the property for them to avoid any possibility of a fine of up to $1,000. I'll warn you about a situation I see every week. And this is where private landlords fail to lodge the bond from the tenants in the correct fashion. First of all, you need to provide a receipt with the name, the date, the bond amount and what the bond is paid for. Then you've got 23 working days only to get that paperwork and the payment to the tenancy services. Failure to do so, if you just put it in your pocket and hold on to it, you could be in a fine of up to $1,000. That's easy money the tenants can get from you if they get offside. Another situation I see often with self-managing landlords is they get in big trouble, particularly if they've had a bad tenant. Now what can happen is the tenant can leave, they can abandon the property, and then the landlords dispose of the items that are left over. Be warned, there is a proper process around storage and disposal, and if you muck it up, even though you're chasing that tenant for the money they owe you, they could chase you for up to $2,000 for disposing of the goods. I was talking to somebody today who asked me the question, as the owner of the property, even though you're managing it, can I go around and mow the lawns? And many landlords mow their own lawns. It's a good way of keeping an eye on the tenants. And recently there was a case where a landlord got taken to tenancy tribunal for interfering with the quiet enjoyment of the tenant's properties, even though he was mowing the lawns. Now why does this concern you? The tenants have to feel like they can enjoy the property and not have somebody watching them all the time. So even the best well-meaning landlord can get themselves into trouble to the tune of up to $2,000. My advice, employ a contractor to do the lawns and just pop the rent up a bit to offset. Here's a fine to really look out for. Why? Because it hurts like heck when you get slapped with it. It's up to $4,000 for landlords not doing their duties as required under Section 45 of the Act. What does that mean? The home has to be clean, it has to be maintained, has to abide by building codes and so forth, it has to be safe and healthy, and it also includes things like smoke alarms and insulation. If you need help with this, let us know, we can guide you in the right direction, but try and avoid a fine of that size. It's not pleasant and it's easy. With the insulation change of 1st July 2019, it is something that is absolutely going to be clamped down on. So be careful. Did you know that for a rental property you are allowed to go onto the grounds of the property without notice? However, you can't go into the buildings at a rental property unless you give the appropriate notice. Recently, in fact last week, an owner in Auckland admitted in Tenancy Tribunal that he'd gone into the house of the tenants 3 times without their permission. The fine for doing this, up to $1,000, he got $800 to pay to the tenant. So landlords, if you think, even if your relationship's good with the tenant, that you can just go into the property, then be aware if things turn sour, that can be held against you. It's always best to get the notice and to give the proper notice. Just let us know if you'd like to know what those periods are. Another fine to look out for is a whopping $4,000, or at least up to $4,000 for what's called retaliatory notice. This might be when you have tenants in a property and they're misbehaving. In fact, they do something in particular which causes you an issue. For example, if you're serving them notice to remove dogs from a property when they're not supposed to have it, you could also at the same time give them 90-day notice to move out. Now that can be seen as retaliation for the fact that they've brought dogs into the property. If that went to tribunal, and there are many examples of this, tribunal could rule that the landlord served that notice in retaliation for something the tenants had done, and therefore can order that they have to pay up to $4,000. But not only that, they could rule that the tenancy is to continue. Large fines that can be brought against landlords by tenants is a fine of up to $4,000 for discrimination. Now, this is discrimination during the selection of tenant process. And even as recently as today, I had a landlord saying to me they wouldn't want a certain ethnicity or a certain marital status in a house. It's not allowed. Do not tell tenants that you have selected them or chosen not to select them based on any of the criteria that are beside me on screen. It is an unlawful act. You can get in a considerable amount of trouble, so just avoid that fine. That's one of the big ones.